Okay, so back on the stroking of 55. Stroking. That's gross. I'm so childish. Why? Anyways, so I got another crank into the mix here. We have it's fine. It's just been sitting in the cold, and the grease. It's a brand new crank. This is the one that I put in the 266 SE cases, the brand new cases that I had, only to figure out that this is for the modern, like a 272 XP. And so the clutch threads and stuff don't work, as well as the flywheel and the whole ignition system doesn't work. So anyways, I got those brand new 266 cases, and I need to get the right crank and clutch and flywheel set up for that thing. But anyways, that's neither here nor over there. Right here, we got this so that we could do some measurements with the big end, because a few of you mentioned I could make an offset crank. And I'm like, well, how do you get the rod to go over the offset crank pin, right? This right here is the pin that holds the big end of the rod in place. And so I'll add some pictures in right here to show you what we're talking about. If you take and you make an offset pin, then you are just simply literally making the pin change locations, right? And you're doing your stroking through the offset pin. So if you do that, then I was like, well, how do you get your rod back on there? Well, the key is you've got to use a larger rod. It doesn't have to be longer or anything like that, or it can be, but the point of it is like if you have, well, let's show you real quick here. This is my 55 crank, and the big end rod pin right there is 12 millimeter. And we're doing rough measurements here. Things will change whenever I split it all apart, and I'm not using just calipers, then I'll start using the proper thing. I don't even know what it's called. I know what it looks like, but anyways, we'll use the proper tools to get real close measurements. So all of this is going to be rough. It's going to be millimeters that I'm actually working with, not thousandths of an inch or anything. So, but anyways, that pin for your big end, your rod, right, is 12 millimeters. This one on the 266 or 272 XP, whatever, is 16 millimeters. All right. So 12 to 16, that's 4 millimeters difference. So with 4 millimeters difference, you would actually be able to stroke it. Like if I was to use this rod, you would actually be able to get a difference of 8 millimeters. So that's an 8 millimeter stroke. You're going from 32 millimeter to 40 millimeter stroke, which is huge, right? And now that brings into other things into play, because every time if you do 4 millimeters difference, you got top dead center and bottom dead center. So it's times 2. You got actually 8 millimeter stroke there, extra. But whenever you do that, your big end of your rod is going to stick out significantly past your journals, right? You're going to stick out past it, and it's going to dig into, forget about the whole balance issues, because 8 millimeter stroke is a big difference, but it's going to dig into the case right here, right? So this, we won't stick it in all the way or anything. We just do a light stick in. The difference between the journals and the bottom of the case right here, the journals to the bottom of the case is 1.5 millimeters. To the bottom of the actual rod, whenever we're at bottom dead center, right, we have an extra half of a millimeter in there. So that's 2 millimeters. So if I used the same rod, the largest I could stroke it without digging into my case there would be a total of 4 millimeter stroke, right? And even still, it would dig in a little bit, but because you're slinging it around, it's gonna move, it's gonna expand. So 4 millimeters is more than I actually want to stroke it. That would be going from a 32 millimeter stroke to 36 millimeter. So there's plenty of room right there. And even if I get a little bit further, you can actually machine out a lot of material on your crankcase there. And so you could stroke it pretty far actually, but you would run into balance issues and things like that. And my aim isn't 8 millimeters. Heck, it's not even 4 millimeter stroke. My aim is 3 millimeter stroke, right? And so anyways, so there's that. The 266 not only is going to send it too far if I was to use that rod. The rod is significantly longer, and larger. So the 55 rod length is 80 millimeter. And the length of the rod on the 266 is 88 millimeter. It's way too big. Way too big. That would be, what, 12 millimeters that I would have to raise my cylinder? That's silly. But also, the big end is so much bigger, I would have to dig out so much of the case. Anyways, it's just not going to work. Not going to work. So we kept going down. The 357 crank shaft, the pin is 15 millimeter. Okay, that gives me a lot of room to work with right there. All right, but again, the rod is 84 millimeters long. So, all right. But whenever we step to the 550 XP Mark I, what I'm seeing is happy days, happy days, because there's my 55 crank. That pin right there is 12 millimeters, according to the roughest measurements I can do with just a basic set of calipers. Whenever I pop it out of there, it'll be slightly different. On this 550 XP Mark I, it's 13.33 millimeters. 12 millimeters, 13.33 millimeters. 12 millimeters, 13.33 millimeters. So that means I should be able to offset, if I used this pin and this actual rod, I would be able to offset the pin in here 3.2. Wait a minute. 1.3. Oh, 2.6 millimeters. Yes. 2.6 millimeters. That's what it is. 1.3 larger than the 12 millimeter that's on here, which would allow me to offset it 1.3 millimeters. And you times that by 2, because you got top dead center and bottom dead center, is going to be 2.6 millimeter stroked. All right. So that puts us at a stroke, a theoretical stroke of 34.6 millimeters. And with a 45 millimeter bore, we've got 55.029 cc's. And then the rod length, right? Remember I said the rod length on the 55 was 80 millimeters. Well, the rod length on the 550 XP Mark I is 79.5 millimeters. So it's just half a millimeter shorter than the rod length here, which is fine. We'll be able to make that up because we're getting a total of 2.6 millimeter extra stroke. So we're going to be able to do all the things that we want to do. The only problem is, and we'll see, there's still something that's out to lunch right now, and that is Corey Corp with Fab Corp. He is getting the measurements for a 254 XP rod, as well as a 262 XP rod. We need to find the size of this crank pin, as well as the length of the rod, to see if I'm going to go with, maybe it would be better to actually utilize a 254 XP crank rod. The reason for that is the 550 XP and the 55 Rancher both take a 10 millimeter wrist pin. Well, the problem then comes into play that there are no good alternatives that I've found so far. I do have one coming in the mail, right? That should be here today, actually. And that is a piston. There's no good option for a piston that takes the 10 millimeter wrist pin. Because very few of these closed port 45 millimeters were made. So the aftermarket has not responded. You can't find an OEM one. I would love to have an OEM one. All right. I have the OEM one right here, but it's scored up. It's really in bad shape. I mean, I could use it if I have to, but I don't want to use it. I want to use a nice piston. And here's the deal. Yeah, you can get a 45 millimeter Rancher piston all day long. It won't have the windows, right? You can get a 45 millimeter It's the 357 a 45 millimeter? No, it's a 46. You can get various different 45 millimeters. They just aren't going to be. They're either too low, too high, whatever. But the 254 XP, the piston, I believe, is like pretty much perfect. And it's easy to find with the aftermarket. You can find all kinds of them. And the only difference, though, is it has a 12 millimeter wrist pin. So it might be better to not use the rod from a 550 XP Mark I, and it might be better to use the rod from a 254 XP. That way I can use a 254 XP piston. Because other than the wrist pin size, I'm pretty sure they're pretty identical. Now, before any of you guys say that you could find, I could use the Little Red Barn piston, because Little Red Barn does make a replica of this right here. Problem is, and everybody wants to talk about things. I personally have never had a failure with the Little Red Barn piston, but I do know that people have, and I understand that and everything. But it's not just that. The rings that they use are a very specific size, and they don't fit anything else. I don't know what it is. It's like this takes like I don't know a 1.2 millimeter ring, and Little Red Barn Pistons uses like a 1.7 millimeter. It's crazy. It's different, and I'm like, why? Why are they doing that? Why the hell? Why do people have to be proprietary? Because it never works out. I mean, people are only buying Little Red Barn Pistons if they have to. So anyways, that's where we're at. If I can use the rod from this 550 XP Mark I, what that's going to do is, in theory, it should give me the ability to stroke everything by 2.6 millimeters extra, which would mean my stroke would go from 32 millimeter to 34.6. Sounds great, right? So now then with your 34.6 millimeter stroke and a 45 millimeter bore, you got a perfect 55 cc's. 55.029. That's just like the best, right? Because I'm aiming for making a 55 XP. So just awesome. But the problem would be the same problem I've been facing, and that is I can't find a good piston replacement. There's just not good piston options. I even have like this. This right here is the newest one. And let's see here. This is, I am almost 100% certain, this is the piston for a Dolmar 5105. Oh, yeah. The wrist pin size is different. So this takes a 10 millimeter wrist pin. This right here, I think is 11. Let's see real quick. Oh, no, it's a 12. It's a 12 millimeter. So the same issue, same exact issue that I'm running in with the 254 pistons, Or maybe that is a 254 piston. I don't know. I do know I have lost one. But I have a new one coming in, a new piston that is for a Homelight 340. And like I said, it should be here today. That is a 45 millimeter windowed piston. And maybe that will be the answer to the much needed replacement for the Husqvarna 55 closed port cylinders that utilized a 45 millimeter piston. And the other option is possibly a 46 millimeter bore, which, I mean, you can buy those right now, and it's a closed port setup. It's a modified one. I have one on my 55. If you've seen it on my channel, it runs pretty good. I'd like to revisit that because, well, that was the first thing I ever ported, ever. So, of course, it's not as good as it could be. And I think that really, I mean, I've went back in it several times and stuff. I think that really the only thing it needs is a bigger carburetor. But whatever. But if I did that 46 millimeter, it'd be 57.5 cc's, which, yeah, hey, bigger cc's great, right? But I'm liking the idea of hitting a nail on the head, 55 cc's perfectly. But if I did go with 46 millimeter, that would bring in, I could use the Poland 325 cylinder, which is the same thing as the 44 millimeter and the 45 millimeter Husqvarna closed port cylinders, right? And Partner closed port cylinder and Johnson Red closed port cylinder. Same thing, only it's 46 millimeter. So anyways, that's the Poland cylinder. So there I am. I'm waiting on news back from Corey, and we will see what he has to say about the 254 XP rod. And maybe it would be best to use that. I don't know. But that's where we're at. All right. Okay. The mail just ran, and that piston came in. But before we got there, I did find the other two that I was missing. The piston that I tried earlier, that was the 254 XP piston, and it would work. It would work nicely if it actually was a 10 millimeter wrist pin, but it's not. It's a 12 millimeter wrist pin. So, but other than that, the pistons are like identical. So that's why I want to give a shot for the 254 XP to work, because this piston right here, I believe, is a Proline piston, and it's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. So the ones that were lost-ish, I misplaced them. The Solo 651 didn't work. The piston skirt is way too short on it. I think really that was about the only problem it had. And then the Dolmar 5105. This one, this one, the top is far too short. The crown is far too short. That is a really small, lightweight little piston. So I look forward. I have a 5105 that I plan on building. Look forward to that. So, but anyways, so now I've got everything. I've tried the steel. What is it? The 032, I think, has a 45 millimeter piston. It doesn't work. 254 doesn't work. The 5105 doesn't work. The Solo 651 doesn't work. And now we're at what I think is my last resort, like Papa Roach.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort.
And that is the piston for a Solo 654. Yeah, I think it's the 654. Which is also the Homelight 340, I think. Oh, looking promising. The reason it's looking promising is because it has some length to the skirt. It appears to be a 10 millimeter wrist pin. It's heavily domed. Nope. I mean, you could probably make this. So the skirt is way too much, and it's got way too much crown. It's possible if you did some machining on this that you could make it work if you weren't stroking it, but I am stroking it. Oh, Jesus. It's different. You see that? The skirt on the intake side is much shorter than the skirt on the exhaust side. Hot damn diggity. I mean, if it wasn't that, if it wasn't for that, that might truly be a viable option, but that it is significantly shorter on the, can you see that? Significantly shorter on the intake side versus the exhaust. Crazy. Well, that's another one lost, another lost cause.
Another one bites the dust.
So my options are pretty slim pickings. The way I see it, I've really only got a couple different options. Number one, I can use a little red barn piston, and I did check, and it appears from a quick check, it does appear that this uses the same size piston ring as the stocker does, and if that's the case, that's good, because I tend to think I don't have a reason, but I don't like the rings on these things, I don't like them. And so if the ring land is the same size as the stocker, then I should be able to get a proper stock ring or a caber ring and use it on this piston. So there's my options. My options are going to be to utilize the stock piston that's all scored up, right? Or a little red barn piston. And there's a third option, and that is finding some other 45 millimeter piston. Maybe the piston for an open port Husqvarna 55 would probably be my best option, and just cutting the windows in it myself. But see, here's the thing. I'm afraid to cut holes in this because it doesn't have the beefed up support system that this does. It scares me. I don't want to do it. Probably just use the scored up stock piston. We'll see. But anyways, that's enough for this here video. Take it easy.